What if the person you help in a moment of kindness turns out to be someone you should never have crossed paths with? And what if, by opening your door to a stranger, you unlock a mystery that could change everything you thought you knew about your life? If you're hooked by the strange twists life can take, don't forget to like and subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this one unfolds. It was a regular Thursday night when Lily knocked on my door. The rain was coming down hard, tapping on the windows like 1,000 tiny fingers begging for attention. My daughter Emma was in the back, scribbling away in her school notebook, probably solving math problems the way only kids can, completely unaware of the world beyond her desk. As for me, I was just trying to keep it together, putting together another round of PB&J sandwiches for dinner, the same routine we followed since my wife passed. I didn't mind the monotony. It kept my thoughts from wandering too far into places I couldn't control. Then there was that knock. Not the kind that comes with the familiarity of neighbors or delivery drivers, but something different, urgent, soft but pressing. I opened the door, and there she was. Lily. She was a little younger than Emma, maybe 11, and drenched to the bone. Her clothes, though soaked, were expensive looking. Perfectly tailored jeans and a designer jacket that didn't quite fit the rainy, small-town vibe. She stood there, looking at me with wide eyes, too scared to speak at first. I need help, she stammered. Her voice was a whisper, almost lost beneath the sound of the storm. I wasn't sure what I expected, but it wasn't this. The girl looked out of place, like a picture ripped from a glossy magazine in a life that didn't belong in the dusty streets of this town. Still, she was a kid, and you don't turn away a kid in the middle of a downpour. Come inside, I said, not bothering to hide the exhaustion in my voice. I wasn't exactly in the mood for company, especially not from someone I didn't know. But when you're a single dad, your heart softens pretty quickly to anyone in need. She stepped over the threshold cautiously, brushing raindrops off her hair, and I could see the faintest trace of a bruise on her cheek. Barely there, but enough to make you wonder. I was fighting with my parents, she murmured, sitting down at the kitchen table without being asked. I don't know where else to go. I didn't press her for details. It wasn't my business, and the truth was, I'd been so caught up in my own struggles with Emma, trying to get her through school, handling bills that didn't stretch far enough, and holding on to the remnants of a life that felt too far gone to fix, that I didn't have the energy for anything else. I didn't ask what her fight was about. Maybe it was teenage rebellion or something else darker, but in that moment, she was just a girl in need of warmth and safety. I grabbed a towel and handed it to her. You're safe here for the night, I told her, though the words felt strange on my tongue. Safe? With someone I didn't know? I felt my pulse quicken. But she was just a kid, and Emma would want to help her. She was already lost enough. I set her up in the living room, letting her change into some dry clothes I kept from Emma's growing pains. After she disappeared into the bathroom, I caught a glimpse of the expensive watch on her wrist, one of those designer brands I could never afford, the kind that cost more than my monthly rent. It didn't add up, but I didn't question it. Lily sat on the couch, head down, eyes hidden behind her wet hair. For a moment, I thought she might be waiting for me to tell her to leave, but I didn't. She was just a girl, innocent, lost. I made her some tea, and she accepted it quietly, sipping it slowly like she was trying to piece together her next words. Meanwhile, Emma had been sitting in the kitchen, drawing in her notebook as if nothing had changed. It wasn't until she wandered into the living room that she saw the stranger on the couch. "Who's this?" she asked, her voice not unkind but filled with curiosity. "Her name's Lily. She's staying with us tonight." Emma looked at me with those big brown eyes, too smart for her own good, but she didn't ask anything more. She just nodded, smiled at Lily, and went back to her drawing. That night, I made a little space for Lily in the spare room, giving her the blankets I had stored in the closet. "You can sleep here," I told her a little awkwardly, as if she was an adult guest instead of a child. I didn't want to make her feel like an intruder, though the whole situation felt off in ways I couldn't explain. She just nodded, not saying much more. I went to check on Emma, making sure she was asleep, and then returned to the couch to try to get some rest. But sleep never came. There was something about Lily, about the way she seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders, that had me up all night. Why had she come here? What was her story? By morning, she was gone. Just like that. No explanation, no sign. Only a note left on the kitchen counter, written in careful handwriting. "Thank you for everything." I stood there for a long while, staring at the piece of paper, my heart pounding in confusion. Emma woke up soon after, as if nothing had changed, and it was like I'd imagined the whole thing. But I knew I hadn't. Something about Lily had felt different. Something told me she wasn't just some runaway girl, and what had happened that night was only the beginning. As I stood there, holding that note, I had no idea that this small act of kindness, letting her stay for a single night, would lead me down a path that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. It's funny how quickly life can change. One moment, you're just trying to keep things together, get through another day of scrubbing dishes and school runs, and the next, everything you thought was certain is up in the air. That's exactly how it felt when I got the call from the private investigator. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Mr. Thompson, I believe you had an unexpected guest at your home last night. A young girl named Lily?" he asked, his tone neutral but businesslike. I froze. I hadn't even told anyone about Lily. She'd left without a trace, and I'd chalked it up to a strange, fleeting moment of kindness. "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "She came by, said she was having some problems with her family, asked if she could stay the night. She left this morning." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Mr. Thompson," he continued, his words now more deliberate, "that young girl, Lily, is the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the country. Her father is Lucas Carver, the CEO of Carver Technologies." I felt a wave of disbelief rush through me. "What? No, that can't be right," I stammered, my mind scrambling to make sense of the words. "She didn't look like—" "Mr. Thompson, I understand this may be a shock," the investigator interrupted. "But it's important that you know, Lily Carver is not someone you can just brush off. She's been missing for 2 days, and her family has been frantically searching for her. The reason I'm calling you is because we've reason to believe she ran away and may have sought refuge with you." The room seemed to shrink, and the blood drained from my face. A kid from one of the wealthiest families in the world had spent the night in my home, without me knowing who she really was. I felt an overwhelming mix of guilt and confusion. Why would she come to me? And why hadn't she said anything about who she was? I didn't say anything for a long time, processing the weight of the situation. I'd opened my door to a stranger, and now, it felt like I'd opened a door to something I wasn't ready for. "How do you know where she went?" I asked, my voice shaky. "We've been tracking her movements, and we believe she may have left on her own accord," the investigator explained. "We're trying to piece together why she would run away from home. Her parents, well, they're desperate to find her." My mind raced. The girl who had seemed so fragile and lost, who had barely spoken about anything personal, was the daughter of a tech mogul? It didn't make sense. The investigator paused again, his voice more urgent now. "Listen, Mr. Thompson, I'm going to need you to stay where you are. I'll be sending someone to your location to pick up any information you might have on Lily. We need to find her before it's too late." "Too late for what?" I asked, my gut instinctively tightening. Something about his words didn't sit right with me. "We don't know yet, but we're trying to prevent a situation that could escalate quickly." The line went dead after that, and I stood there, gripping the phone, still trying to wrap my head around everything. This girl, this wealthy, missing child, had come to me for help. I had no idea why, but I had this sinking feeling in my chest. And now, with this investigator calling me, the last thing I wanted was to be pulled into whatever high-stakes game her family was playing. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't just ignore it. I had to find out the truth. I hung up the phone, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. I glanced over at Emma, who was sitting at the kitchen table, playing with her pencil, lost in thought. I could see the confusion in her eyes too, even if she didn't fully understand what was going on. "Daddy, who was that on the phone?" she asked, sensing the change in my mood. "Just someone asking about Lily," I replied, keeping my tone casual. "It's nothing to worry about." But deep down, I knew it wasn't nothing. Something was off, and I had no idea just how deep the rabbit hole would go. Later that afternoon, I heard a knock on the door again. This time, it was a different kind of knock. Not the soft, tentative knock of a scared little girl, but the firm, assertive knock of someone who was here for business. I opened the door, and standing in front of me was a tall man in a dark suit, his posture stiff and formal, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Thompson?" he asked, his voice cold. "I'm Detective Ryan Hayes with the local police department." We need to have a word about a young girl named Lily Carver. I stepped back instinctively, suddenly feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me like 1,000 bricks. This wasn't just about helping a lost kid anymore. This was serious. And now, it seemed like everyone wanted answers. "Come in," I said, though I felt a chill run down my spine as I stepped aside to let him in. As he walked past me into the living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that the small act of kindness I'd shown Lily had just opened a door to something much bigger than I could have ever imagined. I sat down with the detective, but my mind was already spiraling. Lily had lied to me, or perhaps she hadn't. I still didn't know what to believe, but one thing was certain. I was about to get pulled into a world of wealth, power, and secrets that I wasn't ready for. And as the detective began to ask his questions, I realized just how far I had already gone down the rabbit hole. The deeper I went, the more I could feel it closing in on me. The days that followed felt like a blur, the weight of the investigation looming over me like a shadow I couldn't shake. Detective Hayes visited regularly, asking about Lily's stay and questioning my involvement. I couldn't help but feel like I was being dragged deeper into a world I didn't belong in. Everything about Lily's disappearance seemed tangled in wealth and secrets far beyond my reach. But it wasn't just the questions that gnawed at me. It was the constant feeling that I was in over my head. Then, a breakthrough. Lily's parents finally reached out. The conversation was brief, their voices distant and controlled, but they insisted on meeting me. I agreed, though I couldn't shake the unease that settled in my stomach. I arrived at their mansion the next day, a sprawling estate surrounded by security gates and surveillance cameras. It felt like stepping into another world. Inside, they didn't greet me with gratitude, but with a quiet intensity that made me feel small. Her father, Lucas Carver, was everything I had imagined: polished, sharp-eyed, and cold. His wife, Eleanor, was more reserved, but the weight of their wealth and influence hung heavily in the room. "We need to know why Lily came to you," Lucas said, his tone almost accusatory. "She hasn't spoken a word about what happened." I wasn't sure how to explain what had happened, not fully understanding it myself. But as they continued to press, I saw the cracks in their perfect facade. Lives built on power, yes, but also on loneliness. The more they talked about their daughter's life, the more I realized how little they truly knew her. She hadn't come to me for comfort. She'd come because she was running from a life she couldn't bear. "She's not like you," I told them quietly, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "She's just a girl who needed someone to listen." There was a long silence after that. Eleanor's face softened, just for a moment, but Lucas remained impassive. He nodded curtly, a sign that our conversation was over. I left their mansion with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain: Lily wasn't just a runaway. She was a daughter caught between worlds, and her escape, if only for one night, had opened my eyes to a reality I had never imagined. I don't know what the future holds for Lily or her family, but I know that the night she spent under my roof will always be a reminder that sometimes the people who appear to have everything are the ones who feel the most lost. And sometimes, it's the small acts of kindness that can make all the difference.